All right, we'll start over here. So, very interesting Gemara. We're going to be discussing different rabbis. So it's not just going to be what they taught, but it's going to be speaking about them. So, Abraisa taught, Isi ben Yehuda, would enumerate the praiseworthy traits of various sages. So, this is saying different praises of the Chachamim. So, in one or two words, or more than, we're going to kind of get a whole idea of what these rabbis were like. How do you read it?
No, it doesn't matter. Did you put this up on the Buffalo Jews?
Not today.
Okay.
Ernie's got a program out at the student union at 7 o'clock today.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's why I didn't post it, because there's something else going on. So it says like this about Reb Meir. Reb Meir was a scholar and a scribe. Reb Meir, besides for being a Talmud Chacham, he was also a sofer. He was a scribe. Reb Yehuda was a scholar when he chose to be one. This is a very interesting idea. He was a scholar when he chose to be one. We'll have to see what does that mean when he chose to be one. So
My teachers kept telling me.
He's a good boy if he wants, right? You know, if he wants to behave. So it says on the bottom here, Rabbi Yehuda was a scholar when he chose to speak carefully and deliberately. Marsha questions Rashi's explanation, arguing that this is not a praiseworthy trait. He's saying, only when he likes to, he sounds like he has what to say. He therefore suggests Aruch interpretation. Whenever Rabbi Yehuda chose to speak, he was the preeminent speaker. He was the main speaker. See also Ian Yaakov for a different explanation of Aruch's interpretation. Yeah, so we're trying to understand, if you're trying to praise someone and say he's only a chacham like sheyirtze when he wants to be a chacham, what type of praise is that? So Rashi says that he chose, when he would choose to speak carefully and deliberately, that would be his praise. Let's see what Taisva says. Taisva suggests that Isi's praise of Rabbi Yehuda was that whenever he chose to study carefully and deliberately, he was even greater scholar than Reb Meir. So we started off saying that Reb Meir was a chacham, but Rabbi Yehuda, if he wanted to, he could be even smarter than Reb Meir. This is because although Reb Meir might have had superior analytical skills which allowed him to ask more questions and propose more solutions, Rabbi Yehuda was able to examine an issue thoroughly and patiently, and he generally arrived at the correct conclusion. So these are different type of skills. We have Reb Meir, which is going, more deep, but Rabbi Yehuda is able to come to a very clear, like halacha, clear solution. See also Maral Bach for an explanation of this comparison between Reb Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. Maratz Chayes suggests that Rabbi Yehuda's greatness was that he was able to immerse himself in his studies whenever he chose to do so, even when he was upset or troubled. So this is a different explanation. What does it mean when he wanted? He was always able to be a chacham. Most people, they have to be concentrated in order to study, right? If you're not feeling good or traveling, it might be hard to study. But Rabbi Yehuda, he was a chacham l'keshayirtze. Whenever he wanted, he was able to get fully involved in his studies. So there's something interesting about this Rabbi Yehuda and speaking. So this story really connects to the Gemara on Shabbos with the story of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The story was that there was a few rabbis sitting together and they were discussing the Romans, right? And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said something negative about the Romans. Everything that they're doing, they're just doing for their own benefit. They're building bridges to collect taxes. They're making bathhouses, to make some more money. He was speaking negatively about the Romans. There was another rabbi that he was quiet. Rabbi Yehuda said something good about the Romans, and so what happened was someone reported this meeting of the rabbis, And they said that Rav Shimon bar Yochai, which spoke bad about the Romans, so he should be killed. So that's why he had to run away. That's the whole story of Rav Shimon in the cave and Lag BaOmer and everything like that. Rabbi Yehuda, he spoke positively. He spoke good about the Romans. So they said that he should be the main speaker always. That was his reward for speaking good about the Romans, was that he was always like the first or the main speaker at an event. Now over here we're saying that he's a chacham l'kesheyirtze. What is the quality over here? So the Ibn Yaakov explains that even though he was always able to speak first, but he chose, only sometimes to be the main speaker. It shows on.
Chacham that's wise.
Chacham is wise. L'kesheyirtze, when he would want, which means even though he was always able to be the first and keynote speaker, he only did that sometimes. That's why he was.
It's weird that it says that in 3 different ways. L'chesh. They all 3 mean in effect that.
Yeah, that is. It could have just said kesheyirtze, right?
Yeah,
or
chiyirtze.
Chiyirtze. So there's 3 l'cheshe, the way it's written.
Really.
Yeah, something.
It's like this.
And so. Now, in general, what's the purpose over here? Why are we praising the rabbis? What are we trying to do with this? We're trying to make them feel good. What's the purpose of this? So let's look at footnote 1. The purpose of praising the sages is to encourage others to try to emulate them. So we want to learn from them. This applies even when it comes to praising the sages' intellectual abilities, as they were gifted by them to Hashem due to their merits. And any person who improves his way can also merit having his intellectual abilities increased. Now, there's a lot of stories that people that had a very hard time understanding Torah or deep concepts, and they worked very, very hard, and that refined them to be able to understand, Torah on a much deeper level. Isi ben Yehuda focused on a unique aspect of greatness of each of the sages. The fact that the other sages did not possess this attribute is in no way derogatory, as it is impossible for any 2 sages to be exactly alike in all areas. So we're saying something about each rabbi, and we're being very precise about Reb Meir. How many times do we hear Reb Meir in the Gemara? So many million times. It always says Reb Meir, and the Gemara just says 2 words about him: Chacham v'Sofer. He was a scribe and he was a Chacham. What are these 2 things? Why is it trying to say that he was a Chacham and a Sofer? What do those 2 things have in common? Or, being a Chacham, I understand, but a Sofer, there's a lot of Sofers, a lot of.
A Sofer copies, he transcribes.
Yes.
So his gift is transmitting.
So to transcribe, I'm just saying on a basic level, you don't need to be so smart to copy, right? You could just copy from one book to another.
Right, but you have to have a certain quality of detail orientation and care. And
Maybe that was the source.
if there's translation involved, that's actually a pretty specialized skill.
So that's true. So to be a cipher, you need to have a lot of patience and, like you said,
Master of languages.
Right. But the thing is that there was a lot of cipher. I'm sure that Reb Meir wasn't the only cipher. So to say that he was a chacham and a cipher, what's the great quality about that? So let's look at footnote 2. Reb Meir was the greatest Torah sage of his generation. He was also a writer of Torah scrolls, tefillin, and mezuzahs by trade. Here you see, rabbis did also some business. Machen 11, he was a cipher. Isi praised him as being a scribe par excellence, who knew the entire written Torah by heart, including the exact spelling of words. So not only was he able to transcribe it, he knew the whole Torah by heart, and the exact spelling. Reb Meir was praised for his unique combination of intellectual sharpness and remarkable memory. So this is what's unique. He had both. By nature, these 2 traits are almost never found in one person, as the mind of a sharp person usually works very differently from that of a person with a strong memory. Also, someone that's like very sharp, sometimes like they lack the patience, to start sitting there and writing, to be but Reb Meir was able to combine both. He was a chacham and a cipher. And Rabbi Yehuda, we just said, was chacham l'kesheyirtze. which either could mean that he only spoke sometimes, or when he wanted to, or he was able to be a chacham whenever he wanted to. Okay, let's continue on with some praises of more rabbis. Back in Sign, Reb Tarfon was like a pile of nuts.
Yeah.
It's like, Rabbi Tarfon, want to praise you. You're a pile of nuts. We should have.
I didn't know nuts piled that high.
Why are we comparing Reb Tarfon to a pile of nuts? If a nut is removed from the bottom of a pile, all the remaining nuts fall on top of one another. Similarly, whenever a student questioned Reb Tarfon answered the question and cited proofs from scripture, midrash, Mishna, halacha, and Agada that supported his answer. So it's kind of like a domino effect. You move one and everything comes piling. So you ask him a question and all of a sudden he's bringing from here and there and all the nuts, everything comes together. So that's the praise of Reb Tarfon. Rabbi Shmuel was like a well-stocked wine shop. This sounds like more of a praise. He has everything prepared. Let's see, he was well stocked in all Torah subjects and prepared to instantly teach them all, just as one can quickly receive what he wants in a well-stocked shop. You don't need to start ordering, everything is there, everything is ready. Rabbi Akiva was like a storehouse with compartments. What is this? His broad knowledge was organized according to subjects. So not only did he have everything, but everything was organized according to subjects. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri was like a spice peddler's basket, which contains many different spices. He was prepared to answer questions on many different subjects. Now, if you go more in detail over here, you try to think what's the difference, why one rabbi we're comparing him to a wine, a store of wine, and one, each one represents something different. Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah is like an individual spice basket. So it's not a spice peddler who has many different baskets. He has one specific thing, which has a variety of spices smaller than that of a spice peddler. He too is able to answer questions on a variety of subjects, though he was not as prepared as Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. So that's interesting. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah were both comparing them to spices, to a spice box. But one is of a peddler, which he has much more, and the other one more prepared, I guess, and the other one has less. It's an individual spice basket. The teachings of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov are a kav, a small amount, but they are pure. The words in Hebrew are kav v'naki, which means it's not a lot, but whatever he taught is pure of error, free from error. He taught less than his colleagues, but the halacha is always in accordance with his teachings. There's something very interesting, that the word kav, what's the gematria of the word kav in Hebrew? It's a kuf beis. It's easy to do. 102. And it's according to a tradition, there's actually 102 places where the halacha follows Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Yeah. So the word is not just kav, to say the amount of the measurement. Kav is a measurement, but it's actually, there's 102 places where the halacha follows Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. So even though I guess he's not quoted as much, but wherever he is quoted, pretty much, it's always the halacha like him, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Now, so this Gemara is really very fundamental, because whenever you see one of these rabbis, you could always trace back to this Gemara. Remember Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, he's probably the halachas like him. What about Reb Yossi first? Reb Yossi always had his reasons with him. That is, he always provided a clear explanation of his teachings and showed impeccable logic. So Reb Yossi is very good at reasoning. Reb Shimon has ground much, that he has studied much, but released little. What does that mean? The Gemara explains this last trace. The Brisa taught, here Reb Shimon forgets little of his learning, and whatever he releases, that is forgets, it is only bran. He forgets what's not, only rulings that are not in accordance with halacha. So this shows on his memory. He has a lot of Torah, and anything that he forgets, he was supposed to forget. And this is what Reb Shimon said to his students: "My sons, study my teachings, because my teachings are the cream of the cream of Rabbi Akiva's teachings. We know that Rabbi Akiva, he was the main person in Torah Shabbal Peh. And if you want to know the best of Rabbi Akiva's teachings, you should look at Rav Shimon, because Rav Shimon, he took the best of the best. If you look closely, there's a few the words in Hebrew. So it says Shnu Midaisai. If you look on page 137, it says Shnu Midaisai. You could probably see it over there. Rav Shimon said to his students, and he called them Banai, my children, Shnu Midaisai, study my teachings. That's the way they translate it over here. What?
Yeah, midos means characteristic.
Characteristics. So why is he using the word midos over here? So it doesn't mean Torah or mean study my characteristics. We'll get back to that in a second. And then he says, because shemidaisai, my midos, are terumais mitrumais midos of Rabbi Akiva. You know, in English they said the cream of the cream, but the word in Hebrew is actually trumas. So it's also an interesting comparison to truma. Truma is what you lift and you give to Hashem. So he's basically saying that what he's getting from Rabbi Akiva is like the best of the best, a double truma. We know there's actually, you give truma and then you give truma smeiser, you give a truma of that. So what he's teaching, his teachings are from the best of the best of Rabbi Akiva's teachings. So something interesting, that there's a story about these two words, Shenu Midaisai, over here. I have a copy over here. See, I made a mistake because I wasn't sure if Richie was here, so I'll have to read the story from. You sure? See, yes, so he's quoting a story from Reb Moshe. So Reb Moshe was the son of the Alter Rebbe, which was a whole story about him. It's a complicated story. Either way, was between 8 and 11 years old. He was studying the passage in Gittin, 67a. He was studying the same Gemara, with lauding the virtues of the sages. There, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai said, learn my midos. This is the words over here, Shenu Midosai. Reb Moshe was in doubt about the meaning of the last word, since there is a Rashi interpretation. So Rashi says clearly that it means my teachings, but the simple meanings are traits of character, like David said. So this is the son of the Alter Rebbe. He's studying this same Gemara over here, and he has this question: how do we learn it? Does it mean teachings or does it mean midos? At that moment, Alter Rebbe came in and said, in the chant he habitually used, usually the Alter Rebbe would say things in a special song. The Torah given us is all fine character traits. Even the punishments there are in truth acts of kindness and goodness. The two interpretations are one and interdependent. There can be no fine character traits without Torah. There can be no Torah without fine character. So midos, teachings, and midos, character traits, are interconnected because you can't have one without the other. Torah is about having good midos, and you can't really understand Torah, without good midos. Then it says exactly the same incident happened to the Tzemach Tzedek when he was between 8 and 11. It's interesting that the same story happened again, where he had this question while he was studying the same Gemara, Shana Midaisai, and Alter Rebbe told him the same thing. I wonder what the significance is between being between 8 and 11, but that's the way the story goes. Yep. So this is something about each one of the rabbis here discussing their praises. Shana Midaisai. Okay, so then this goes to the next piece, next parak, back inside our Gemara. And this story is going to get very, very exciting. In that Gemara, the one Reuven, Richie, the one you're using, it's a few pages later. Maybe
C-H-A-F-F.
but it because the
About Rabbi Shimon, C-H-A-F-F.
so it goes a little bit further because
You're going back.
this is going backwards.
You.
Daf Samach Zayin.
Daf Samach Zayin. Right here. Okay. this story is really, really fascinating. The previous Gemara now recorded in Yaakov taught that the remedy for illness brought upon by exposure to the cold is to eat fatty meat. So if anyone has an issue with colds, the Gemara is telling us what we could do to treat a cold. So what should you do? Eat fatty meat broiled on coals and to drink undiluted wine. The Gemara relates an incident involving this remedy. So Rav Amram Chasida, Rav Amram the Pious. I also don't think he's too often found in the Gemara, but this is about Rav Amram Chasida. When he was being persecuted by the household staff of the Reish Galusa. The Reish Galusa is the exile ark, literally head of the exile. Yet, they were appointed to lead the people in Bavel and Galus, and a lot of times they did not get along that well with the rabbis, and they made them issues. Let's look at footnote 1, a little bit about the Reish Galusa. The Reish Galusa was the political leader of Babylonian Jewry. Although this position was reserved for descendants of the house of David and was generally occupied by virtuous individuals, members of the Reish Galusa's staff often abused their authority, utilizing the power that they wielded to intimidate people who did not find favor with them. Rav Amram the Pious often rendered halachic rulings for the Reish Galusa that seemed unduly restrictive to the Reish Galusa servants, who were less than pious. Like we'll see soon, they therefore made his life unpleasant. So, as his name, he's called Rav Amram Chasida, so he's being extra pious, extra chassid. And when he's ruling halachas for the Reish Galusa and his servants, they weren't so happy about his ruling, so they gave him a hard time. And we'll see what happened. So what did they do? Back in the Gemara, they made him sleep in the snow. But the way they translate it here in the art scroll is in the cold. They make it not as harsh. The word in Hebrew, in Aramaic, is actually atalga. Talga is sheleg in Aramaic. So a lot of times a tuf and a shin get exchanged in Aramaic. So instead of teleg, it's sheleg. Now, what does that mean? How did they make him sleep in the cold? Let's look at footnote 2. On frigid nights, they opened the windows of his room after he was asleep. That's really cruel. They're going to his house and they're opening his windows on a freezing cold night. That's what they were doing. So now he's not feeling good, obviously, and he became ill. The next day, they would say to him, "What would the master like to have brought to him to eat?" So looks like they're also serving this Rav Amram. He said to himself, "These people, whatever I tell them, are sure to do the opposite." He therefore said to them, "I would like lean meat broiled on coals and watered down wine." As expected, they brought him fatty meat broiled on coals and undiluted wine. So he got exactly what he wanted for, as we just said, that's a good remedy for cold. He thus obtained the remedy he needed to cure his illness. Rav Amram, however, later suffered from the effects of eating the fatty meat and strong wine. Yalta, so now, you took care of one problem, but then there's always side effects from the cure. So now he's having too much meat and wine is not good for you either. Yalta, this is a name of a woman, the wife of Reb Nachman and daughter of the Reish Galusa, heard about Rav Amram's suffering. So what did she do? She brought him to a bathhouse and had him stand in the hot bath waters until the bath waters changed to the color of blood from its absorption of Rav Amram's perspiration, and his flesh was covered with round blotches. So what's the story over here? Who is Yalta? Let's look at footnote 3. As the wife of Rav Nachman, who was the head of the rabbinic court and daughter of Reish Galusa, she was a prominent woman. Yalta was not afraid to protect Rav Amram from the Reish Galusa's servants. So, she came to help. Footnote 4, the fatty meat and potent wine that Rav Amram had ingested in order to cure his illness upset his body's equilibrium. Therefore, Yalta had him stand in the hot waters to draw the excess fat and alcohol from his pores. He remained in the water so long that his flesh was left with pale spots on it, where they took out the... So this is the way they took care of colds, I guess, in the rabbis in the times of the Gemara. But, it's not simple to be a rabbi in the times, Reish Galusa, they're making all types of problems here. The Gemara describes other remedies for a chill. So this is a good Gemara to know when it's cold. Rabbi Yosef, when suffering from a chill, would engage in turning a mill until he perspired, and his body heat would thus be restored. Yes, we see rabbis here doing physical labor. He was working on a mill. Rav Sheishes would engage in carrying beams and other heavy loads until he perspired, and his body heat would thus be restored. Could you imagine, seeing these great rabbis carrying beams? It's amazing. Rav Sheishes would say, when doing so, how great is labor, for it warms those engaged in it. So he was praising work over here. Let's see footnote 5. Not only is his physical labor valuable for what it produces, it is inherently valuable as it is beneficial to one's health. So a lot of people work for different reasons. Usually we work to make money, but here it's saying that the work itself, the physical labor, has a benefit, because it keeps the person warm, more like for the exercise part of it. That's why they were doing it. So that's the words in Hebrew it's strong words. Gedola malacha. Work is very, very important. Shemachamem esas ba'aleh, because it keeps warm the person engaged in it. Now, something very interesting. Who were these two rabbis that were working? Was Rabbi Yosef and Rav Sheishes. That the Gemara is discussing what they did. What do we know about Rabbi Yosef and Rav Sheishes? They were both blind. Oh. And even, Rav Yosef and Rav Sheishes, they were working, despite being blind. Let's check over here in the back. I remember one of the commentaries, he highlighted that the fact that they were blind. It's on page Shin Lamed Beis in the back, Shelev, right before Sheleg. We're going to the back to look at one of the Mefarshim on page Shin Lamed Beis. So we're looking for the Maharsha. It's on the right column. Shin Lamed Beis, where the Maharsha, where it's in the right column. Rav Sheishes Yasik. So why is the Gemara picking out these two rabbis and telling us the work that they did? So the Maharsha says, Naktinu, the reason why the Gemara chose these rabbis specifically, most people could do other labor, could go in lachtav eitzim to chop wood, so, chopping wood, I guess, was a more general type of work that anyone could do. But over here, because they were blind, it's dangerous to chop wood. Well, you can't really do that. Because they were blind, they can't do chop wood. So the Gemara is telling us, someone blind maybe doesn't have to work. You might think, they still chose to do, hard labor, physical labor. They did something that they can, which is working in a mill or carrying beams. I guess that's not dangerous. I'm not sure, but I guess less dangerous than chopping wood. But this is really something amazing to learn about the rabbis, that they were, even though they were blind, they specifically tried to do work which is involves physical labor, because that's good for cold. You also have to think about the temperature in Bavel. I don't know, how cold does it get over there? Here in Buffalo, it gets, but I wonder how cold it could even get in Bavel.
That's Iraq?
Yeah, that's what.
I mean,
But I guess in the winter,
it
some.
snows in Iran.
What?
Snows in Iran and their neighbors, so.
Yeah, so I guess on a cold night. So what do we see from here? So this is what the Marsha points out, that these rabbis were blind and nevertheless they did these hard works. Another interesting thing is, according to this Gemara, we have two solutions for cold. One is drink meat and wine, meat on coals and wine, or to do hard work. Yeah, Richie, we'll do it later. We'll pick it up later. Or you're trying to fulfill the Gemara. So let's look at another, the Iyun Yaakov on the bottom. He also points out something. It says, Rabbi Yosef Iyasik Berichaya, Rav Sheishes Miyasik Bikshuri. So he asks a question. Hadulay Avdi Gamkin Rafuazai, the Basar Shamina Gumri, V'cham Rachaya. He's asking, these rabbis are blind. Why did they have to do this hard work? Why didn't they just eat the meat and drink the wine? That's easier. Efshar Loimar. So he says something amazing. The Ikar Refuah Hua Yidekihu Nechmad Lamaycho V'taiva Leinayim. He says, what's the trick? How does the meat and the wine affect the person? He says a big part of eating is seeing, is the sight of the texture of the flavor. Someone that can't see, chas v'shalom, they lose a lot of the taste. Like it says, "V'chein hayayin ki yitein b'kais einai." There's a pasuk that says you put your eye on the wine. There's a special taste when you see the purple, the wine. Ukahai gavnar minam b'psachan daf men beis. The basar shamin v'yayin yashan me'irin eseinayim. It says if you have fatty meat or old wine, it brightens your eyes. It brings light to your eyes. V'yadekeinu meschamim gufay. So what heats up the person? It's not just the meat. It's not just because the meat is hot or the wine. It's because you actually get to see it, and that gets you excited about it. Mash'enkin, Rabbi Yosef, Rav Sheishes, Hayusagi Nahiri. But Rabbi Yosef and Rav Sheishes were blind, so therefore the remedy of the meat and wine wouldn't work for them. That's why they had to carry the beams. Amazing. That's the way that Iyun Yaakov explains it. That's why, they had to get warm through work. He gives an alternative answer. Or maybe they did both. Basically, they had the meat, they had the wine, but then it leaves you without after effect. So what do you do after that? You go to work. They didn't want to take the bath that Yalta gave to the other rabbi. They saw what happened. It's very painful to be in such a bath. So they did, they had to schwitz. So what did they do? They had the meat, they had the wine, and afterwards they did the work. They carried the beams. So that's two explanations of why Rav Yosef and Rav Sheishes did this work. Either because the meat and wine would not be helpful for them because they can't see and the food wouldn't affect them, or they did it afterwards, to take care of the after effects. So that's about
If you wanted to stay warm all day, you would do the work.
Yeah. Also, the meat and wine, you're saying doesn't last, how long does it last you for? Yeah. So now the story gets worse. They're trying to make more problems, the servants of the Reish Galusa. So back to the Gemara, page 139. So another incident involving the servants of the Reish Galusa. The Reish Galusa once said to Rav Sheishes, why does the master not dine with us? So the Reish Galusa, he's this important person, the leader of all the people in Bavel, and Rav Sheishes doesn't eat by him. And he's thinking, you think we're not so kosher? Do you think, why don't you eat by us? Rav Sheishes replied, because your servants are not virtuous, for they are suspect of serving limbs that have been severed from live animals. This is something, Aver Menachai, even Goyim are not allowed to have limbs from a live animal. And Rav Sheishes is telling the Reish Galusa that one of your servants might be serving, a part of a live animal. That's pretty harsh. The Reish Galusa said to him, who is to say that this is true? Why are you suspecting me? Rav Sheishes replied, I will now demonstrate it to you. I'll give you, I'll show you. Rav Sheishes said to his attendant, "Go, steal one leg of the animal that the Reish Galusa's servants are preparing for the meal and bring it to me." This is crazy. Rav Sheishes is telling one of his servants, to steal part of the animal of the Reish Galusa. Rav Sheishes' attendant brought him a leg. Rav Sheishes then said to the Reish Galusa's servants, "Lay out for me the cuts of the animal. I want to see, what you cut up from the animal." They brought the cuts, including only 3 legs, because obviously one of them was missing because he told them to steal it, and placed them before Rav Sheishes. So now, you ever heard of a 3-legged animal? The Rav Sheishes said to them, "This animal has only 3 legs, which makes it terefa. How are you serving me an animal that has only 3 legs?" They thereupon severed 1 leg from a different animal, brought it, and placed it before him, claiming that it was the 4th leg. From a live animal, they chopped off this 4th leg. Rav Sheishes then told his attendant, "Place your leg, that is the one you took, over here also." So now he's bringing back the real one, the original leg. Rav Sheishes' attendant placed it here. Rav Sheishes then said to the Reish Galusa's servant, "Was this animal 5-legged?" All of a sudden there's 5 legs. He thus exposed their sinful activity. He's like, now you understand why I'm not going to eat by you? This is what a story. Now, there's a lot of questions over here, very difficult to understand. How is Rav Sheishes allowed to do this, to tell his servants to steal part of, it didn't belong to him? How is Rav Sheishes able to tell, his servant to steal part of the leg of the animal?
Well, was he stealing it or just moving it?
The words in the Gemara is zil genoiv. He says, go and steal. He says, go and steal this, which...
Because did it ever leave the domain of the owner?
Comes next.
Because that's my...
No, but it doesn't...
By moving it and not stealing.
It doesn't say that clearly, but that is an answer, that he didn't really, take it out of the domain, possibly. This reminded me, the question about stealing the Afikoman, coming to Pesach. Do we encourage children to steal? That is a question that's discussed. When you're so there's different ideas. People know that it's only for a game, or it's
Also, the English word may not do justice. I don't know. In Yiddish or Hebrew.
Let's just say hide the Afikoman.
Hide it. What?
In other words, in Yiddish, use the word, ganef, when the children try and...
So the word in Hebrew is chaytfin. We grab the afikoman.
No, that's exactly my point. That the English is not doing it proper justice.
Mm-hmm. But even grabbing, is that a nice, is that educational? You're teaching kids. The whole idea of the Seder is to teach kids. Are we teaching them to grab away the afikoman? What's the... So there is discussion.
Yeah.
Just in the bargain. But the whole thing happens under your jurisdiction, so you give permission, which it goes on to say the footnote.
So that's similar. Oh, where does it mention that? Which footnote?
Footnote 7.
7, perfect. It is forbidden to steal even in jest, and even if one intends to repay the owner. Accordingly, one must conclude that Rav Sheishes did this with the consent of the Reish Galusa. That's interesting that he would agree. Alternatively...
Well, to test his people.
Yeah. He doesn't want to give me a high either.
Right, that's true. Alternatively, Rav Sheishes was permitted to do this in order to demonstrate the servant's irresponsibility, thereby preventing them from causing people to eat forbidden food in the future. It's kind of interesting, like you're doing one thing in order to take care of a different problem, of Abram and Achai. So I guess maybe you could apply some of this to the Afikoman also, that maybe it's connected to matzah and you want to get them more involved in the mitzvah. You don't want them to fall asleep, so maybe there's a heter for that. Okay, so basically Rav Sheishes proved his point. He says your servants are not reliable. They would just cut off a leg from an animal and bring it, because it doesn't look good that there's only 3 legs. So now the Reish Galusa persisted back in the Gemara. He said to Rav Sheishes, if so, that is, if you do not eat here because my servants are untrustworthy, let them prepare a meal in the presence of the master's attendant. He's like, Rav Sheishes, you be the mashgiach. You stand over here, you watch them while they prepare, so you can be assured that the food is permissible, and then let the master eat with us. So he really wanted Rav Sheishes to eat at his table. Rav Sheishes replied, very well. And the word in Aramaic is actually l'chayi. It's kind of like l'chaim. But l'chaim, very good. Reish Galusa's servants brought a table before them, brought meat before Rav Sheishes and the Reish Galusa, and placed before Rav Sheishes a particular cut of the meat that contained a hidden bone that could choke the unsuspecting. You see what they want to do to Rav Sheishes? They want to kill him. They specifically gave him this part. Now Rav Sheishes, who suspected the Reish Galusa's servants of treachery, probed at the portion of meat and discovered the bone. He immediately took the portion of meat with the bone and wrapped it in his scarf so that he could later demonstrate to the Reish Galusa that his servants had attempted to kill him. And this is something very interesting. The words in the Gemara, it's on page 140. It says ristana, this is a bone, dechanka chemsa. You see the word on the top? Dechanka chemsa. So what does the word chanka chemsa mean? Chanka, if you look at the shirish, the root of the word is chenek, choking. Yeah, and chemsa means a mother-in-law, chamos. And one of the Mefarshim say that the reason why this bone is called this is because, unfortunately, a daughter-in-law did this to her mother-in-law. She was in a fight with her mother-in-law, and she gave this bone, and unfortunately the mother-in-law passed away, but that's how the bone got this name. This bone is called Chenka Chemsa. This Mefarsh says it actually happened. It's not a joke. Footnote 11 goes a little bit into more details. They gave Rav Sheishes a portion containing one of the small bones of the pelvic region, expecting him not to notice it since he was blind. Again, Rav Sheishes was blind. How was he even supposed to notice this? This was an attempt to revenge for Rav Sheishes' exposure of their misdeeds. He just showed that they were about to give Abram and Achai. So here they were trying to choke him, but Rav Sheishes, he was able to notice that despite him being blind. Amazing. So what did he do now? He took this little piece of meat, put it in his scarf. After he had eaten, the story gets more and more wild. After he had eaten, the Reish Galusa's servants told him, a silver goblet was stolen from us. The servants, it sounds like the story of Yosef or something. They're looking for the gavia, the goblet. They thus fabricated an excuse to search his scarf. They wanted to see what is he hiding over there in the scarf. While searching for the supposedly missing goblet, they found a portion of meat wrapped in Rav Sheishes' scarf. The servant said to the Reish Galusa, do you see, master, that Rav Sheishes does not want to eat here, but rather to annoy us? What is this person doing? He's coming to eat, and he's putting a little bit of his food in his scarf. He's not even eating here. What is he doing? Rav Sheishes said to them, I did eat a little bit, and I tasted in my portion the taste of a leprous animal. Rav Sheishes was able to tell that it wasn't a healthy animal. The servant said to him, we prepared no leprous animal today. So they denied, it's not true. Rav Sheishes said to them, examine the animal's skin in the place from which the portion was taken, and you will discover a white spot. This is an indication of disease. It's kind of like a tsaras, this leprosy. For Rav Chisda said, a black spot on a white-skinned animal, or a white spot on a black-skinned animal is a sign of an affliction. Thus, even if the animal was not leprous, the portion I was served was certainly diseased. They examined the skin and discovered a discoloration in the area indicated. So he's like, no offense, it's not that I didn't want to eat from you, it's just, this food was not healthy. I have to call what do they call it? The health department on the Reish Galusa. the servants are not only serving Aver Menachai, not only they're trying to choke him, the piece of meat is actually, unhealthy. Now, this part of the story is a little bit hard to understand because I thought he was trying to expose the fact that he had the part that they were trying to choke him. So why did he make up now a new story about the fact that it wasn't healthy? You see, it's very strange. Like he puts it in the scarf, he wants to expose them, but then when they try to show what's in his scarf, now he's saying that the animal is not healthy, and he's again found to be true. But why didn't he just say that they wanted to choke me with this little piece with the bone?
This doesn't sound like it happened in front of the Reish Galusa.
Why? Why would you think that it wasn't in the present? Because it sounds like that they were eating the meal together. That was the whole point. The Reish Galusa wanted him to be joining the meal.
Oh no, I'm sorry. He says, "Do you see
It's
Master
another
Rav Sheishes did not
normal
want
day
you
with
to
the Reish
annoy us."
Galusa.
That sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
The-
Absurd.
yeah.
Wouldn't want to be there.
Yeah. That's
Hard to get-
and there was all different types of Reish Galusas. Not all of them were bad, but these are them. It says sometimes they would abuse their power.
It said the servants of the Reish Galusa would abuse their power, not the Reish Galusa himself.
I think it mentioned that sometimes the Reish Galusas, it says staff. You're right.
Big money.
It might be true, but that's not what it says.
Right. That's true.
What does Galusa mean?
The head of the exile, like the head of Babel, yeah. It was more like a political position. So I saw one of the Mefarshim saying that, just to show the fact that they were trying to choke him, he could have just took out that little bone. Why did he also take the meat that was around it? When putting it in the scarf, he took like a chunk of meat together with the bone. So that's why he had to explain that it was also unhealthy to eat it.
Wasn't he bringing that back for a symbol that they were trying to kill him?
So right, but the question is, when he took out the meat, he didn't say that they were planning to kill him. He said that it was unhealthy. The question is, why didn't he say that they were planning to kill him? Why did he say that it was unhealthy?
Was the Reish Galusa their way of saying it?
Yeah, it says so. Do you see, Master, that Rav Sheishes does not want to eat here, but rather to annoy
okay.
us?
Yeah.
So he said that to the Reish Galusa.
Yeah.
But I would guess that he initially planned to remove the meat on the bone to show to the Reish Galusa. When he tasted the distaste, he realized that might be good cover. Maybe he thought that far ahead that it might be useful to have that cover also. Or it may just be that he tasted it distastefully and stopped eating it through the whole thing in the thing. He wasn't going to bring up the leprous taste, but he wasn't going to eat any further into it either.
See, but then later on, he also noticed an additional problem.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
exactly.
saying. The thing
So
is that
I'm
he
saying
did.
he knows that he felt the bone, so now he's going to get the bone and put it in the scarf. And as he's getting to that portion, now he tastes the distaste. He says, "Well, I'm not eating anymore, but I still need the bone." So he cut out the bad part with the bone and hid it. And then they conveniently, tried to set him up, and he had an excuse ready. Lucky for him, or even Baruch Hashem, he had an excuse ready. Oh no, this tasted, and he said, look for a discoloration because he knew one would be there.
But what's interesting is that he didn't even mention the fact that they tried to choke him.
No, he didn't get that far.
He didn't get that
far. Oh, sir, we cannot let you have. What a terrible thing. Let's take that away and get you a fresh piece of meat. So maybe they foiled him.
Or maybe, yeah, that's possible. Yeah, so this is something that's discussed over here, like why he came up with this other idea, not about the choking.
It does say footnote 12 that Maharsha and Maharal have different answers for why he did not eat the meat and only wrap the bone.
Yeah.
But that's the one that occurs to me without reading what they had to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, they say that just the fact that it wasn't that healthy doesn't mean that it was life-threatening, like that it was very dangerous. They're just saying that that's not really a good part of meat to eat. But the other part, that was really dangerous, the part that could choke you. Okay, so now they didn't give up. They tried to kill him again.
Yeah.
The Reish Galusa's servants made another attempt on Rav Sheishes' life. As Rav Sheishes was leaving, they dug a pit for him. this is again, sounds a little bit like Yosef. They threw a reed mat over it and said to him, "Come, master, repose for a while on one of our couches. You just had a nice meal. Well, we want you to sit down and enjoy yourself on one of the couches." Since Rav Sheishes was blind, they expected him to fall into the pit while walking toward the couch. Rav Chisda, so all of a sudden Rav Chisda pops in. We weren't talking about him before, but just on the right moment, Rav Chisda snorted to Rav Sheishes from behind to warn him from the danger he faced.
Hebrew word for snorted.
The word is nachar. Nechar or nachar. That's the word for snorting. Rav Sheishes thereupon said to a young boy standing nearby. All of a sudden you have a kid coming into the story also. You could make like a whole movie just from this story over here. They call it the trap. They're trying to get Rav Sheishes. So he asks a kid, "Recite your verse for me." That is, recite the verse that you studied most recently.
Now it sounds like Mordechai.
Yes, exactly. We have in the story of Purim, Mordechai asked the kids, say a pasuk, and they say Al Tiro, don't worry. The boy said to Rav Sheishes, "Turn to your right or your left." Rav Sheishes then said to his attendant, "What do you see?" So first he asks a kid. He has a few signs over here. He has a snort signal from Rav Chisda. He has the pasuk from a kid. And then he asks his servant, "What do you see?" The attendant replied, "A reed mat thrown on the ground." So Rav Sheishes, he already understands what's going on. Rav Sheishes said to him, "Turn away from it and lead me around it." So Rav Sheishes avoided, their trap. How many times does he have to say "ha goimel" after this? He's like, "I'm not eating by your house again." After Rav Sheishes had left the Reish Galusa's property, Rav Chisda said to him, "How did the master know to go around the mat?" Rav Chisda was the one who snorted to him, and it's funny, he's even asking, like, how did you know? Because there's a lot of explanation of what was going on, but some people say maybe he snorted, it was by mistake, or he didn't actually say what the danger was, he just made a sound. Rav Sheishes replied, he says a few things. Firstly, because you, master, snorted to me in warning. Furthermore, because the child recited a verse for me, he said this pasuk. And furthermore, because the Reish Galusa's servants are suspect of attempting murder, since they are so unvirtuous. So yes, three reasons why not to, why he went around it. So this is very, this is amazing, to get to learn about the life of Rav Sheishes. First of all, you see how he was able to demonstrate and prove something like right away. He said, they're not trusted on Ever Menachai, and he brought an example right over there where they brought this piece of the animal. And then when they tried to kill him, he even though he was blind, he was able to point out that piece, and Hashem saved him. And then later, when they tried to kill him through falling into this pit, but I don't know how they did this all. They're eating a meal. All of a sudden, they have like a whole pit dug. Well, that could kill him. And putting this mat, they have this whole thing planned. And then all of a sudden, you have Rav Chisda and the kid coming there, to his assistance. This is really hashgacha, like Hashem helping him out. Now, there's a few things to point out. Is this something that we can do? Let's say you have a question. Can you rely on a kid saying a pasuk? Does this work? Could we do this?
Do it, then yeah.
So
if you're on that level.
If you're on that level.
Mordechai did it. Sheishes did it. Who might argue?
I mean, here it sounds just that he was giving cover for the young boy to tell him what's really going on.
So that's the question. Was he fully relying on him? Because it sounds like he only mentioned it as one of the reasons. Like he didn't say that's why because of the kid. He said, first of all, I had the signal from Rav Chisda plus the kid. Right.
No. This all has to be surreptitious or else the guards probably kill him or something. Mm-hmm. So the one guy, to tip him off to watch your step, and then he's looking for...
You're implying the child knew
an
that there was danger.
indirect method to have someone tell him more specifically what's going on.
Mhm.
So it's, it's the intent is giving the young boy an opportunity to,
You're assuming the boy knew the danger.
correct.
But it says here, it was common practice in earlier times to take a verse cited by a child as a portent of things to come. See Esther,
Right.
see Baba Basra. This practice is based on the tradition that following the destruction of the base of Mikdash, prophecy was taken from the prophets and given to the deranged and to children. Gotta start paying more close attention when we're
So basically, it's interesting. The Rambam actually says that
verse cited by a child was thus considered a minor form of prophecy. Sorry, go ahead.
So it's actually a machlokes. The Rambam says that you're not supposed to do this. He says that it's actually a problem of kind of like divining or something like that. So if you look closely, the child said to go on your right or your left, but Rav Chisda didn't do that. He didn't go to the right or to the left. He went around. So some Mefarshim say that according to the Rambam, who says that you're not supposed to rely on the kid, that's why, he just got the idea, the general message, but he didn't actually follow exactly what the kid said. He just kind of avoided the danger, but he didn't listen to the command of the kid, which would be to go. If it was actually like a nevuah, then he would have to go to the right or the left. But he didn't do that. He went around.
It goes on to say here, there's a question about whether you can do that except in good tidings, but then it says Rama rules in accordance with Smag and Ron that it is even permitted to directly act upon the information learned from a child's recitation of a verse, since this is considered a minor prophecy and not in the category of prohibited divination.
Yes.
So it's prophecy and not divination.
So according to the Rambam, it's saying that Rav Sheishes did not fully rely on the child and didn't do exactly. It was only adding to that.
So he didn't turn to the right or left, but just asked his servant to guide him.
And he also went around, and then he didn't go to the right or the left. He avoided it. So this is amazing. You see the power of the rabbis, and how Hashem helps them in these situations. So in summary, today we learned about the different praises of the different chachamim. We learned about what to do when you have cold, meat and wine, good exercise, hard work.
So what links Yosef and Mordechai? It links the goblet, the stolen goblet, to the prophecy of children, and the evil servants. That's kind of like Haman or possibly Korah.
And the Reish Galusa, maybe like Achashverosh.
I'm sure that somewhere somebody's commented on what links those together, but it eludes me.
I would think one of the connections, it's all about Galus. All these things are a result of being in exile. And the story of Yosef's cup was the beginning of Galus. But we're heading now to Pesach, where Hashem takes us out.
What was the political foundation of Babylonia at that time with these people that they worked for the Jews?
The Jews lived in harmony with the government, but they had their own religious leaders. I'm pretty sure the government of Babylonia also let them follow their own laws for the most part.
Yeah, I think
This
we
is
had
going on in the Alex Arch's house.
Yeah.
So that's like
Exile.
That's not a Jewish house, is it?
It is.
No, the Exarch is the leader of the Jews in exile.
Yeah, this is.
He's the Jewish leader of the Jews.
They wanted first degree murder of a blind rabbi?
No, the servants were the bad guys.
Yeah, that sounds.
Yeah.
Not him.
No, I knew that. I said the servants.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But
Doesn't
just
sound like a nice house.
no, not at all.
Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
What part of the Gemara is this in now?
This is Gittin.
Oh, we're still in Gittin.
Yeah. Yeah, so, but just like Hashem saved, we're going to stop here, but just like, we'll finish off on a good note, just as, Hashem saved Rav Sheishes and Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, we're heading to Pesach, so that's a time of Geula, time of redemption from all problems.
Save the recording, send me the link to it, I'll put it out. All right, it's 10 minutes to
Yeah.